Dinosaurs lived 65 million years ago. What is left of them is fossilized in the rocks, and it is in the rock that real scientists make real discoveries. Now, what John Hammond and InGen did at Jurassic Park is create genetically engineered theme park monsters, nothing more and nothing less.
You are acting like we are engaged in some kind of mad science. But we are doing what we have done from the beginning. Nothing in Jurassic World is natural. We have always filled gaps in the genome with the DNA of other animals. And if their genetic code was pure, many of them would look quite different. But you didn't ask for reality. You asked for more teeth.
I never asked for a monster.
Monster is a relative term. To a canary, a cat is a monster. We're just used to being a cat.
Throughout the franchise, we've come face to face with monsters beyond our wildest dreams. But out of every monster that we've come across, there is one that stands out above the rest. One that doesn't even hold the title of genetically engineered. The Troodon pectinodon. InGen was founded in 1975 by John Hammond and Benjamin Lockwood. They hired a Stanford geneticist, Dr. Norman Atherton, to begin their research into genetic engineering. In 1984, Atherton, along with Berkeley graduate Dr. Laura Sorkin, as well as up-and-coming geneticist prodigy Henry Wu, began their revolutionary process of genetic replication by cloning Paleoloxodon falconeri, or the dwarf elephant. The success of the project was heavily credited to Wu, as his revolutionary process of gene replication was key in the development of the assets, to such a degree that Wu was promised a place on InGen's genetics team for Jurassic Park after he earned his doctorates. In the meantime, InGen had begun moving on to their star attractions for Jurassic Park, and the state-of-the-art embryonics administration was constructed on Isla Sorna. In 1985, Sorkin was promoted to chief geneticist after the unfortunate loss of Atherton due to his lengthy battle with heart cancer. She had begun experimenting with genetic replication on prehistoric DNA harvested from mosquitoes preserved in amber. But none of the DNA had enough material to produce a viable genome. DNA is an organic compound, and like all organic material, it decays over time. All the prehistoric DNA InGen could recover was riddled with gene sequence gaps. Sorkin, wanting to preserve the integrity of the aDNA, sewed the ends of the gaps together, and thereby completing the genetic code. However, this method never recovered the genetic information lost by millions of years of decay, and therefore the resulting sequence was unimaginably shorter than the original strand. The DNA no longer coded for a dinosaur, and the incubation tests never resulted in anything other than single-celled organisms. After the countless failed attempts, Hammond was furious with the lack of progress being made. The investors for Jurassic Park San Diego were growing impatient, and Hammond needed a successful dinosaur incubation to protect their investment. Dr. Sorkin did eventually succeed in creating a viable dinosaur embryo. After examining an amber sample collected from the Hell Creek Formation, she discovered an unusually large amount of well-preserved DNA, and without hesitation, the process to revive the specimen was underway. Hammond remained skeptical, however, warning Sorkin that if she failed, that her position at InGen was at risk. The gaps of the DNA were closed shut, and the replication process began. From the single strand of DNA came a tiny, seemingly insignificant cell. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing they hadn't seen before. Sorkin held her breath, inspecting the monitor, displaying the cell in stasis, hoping for the slightest sign of mitosis. The cell began to expand and contract, continuously growing before deflating back to its original size. And as Sorkin overlooked the process, the nucleus of the cell began to dissolve. The cell began to expand once more, larger than previous, and suddenly, seemingly instantaneously, the single cell split apart. From the single, insignificant cell, a twin was born. Sorkin looked in amazement as the cells continued to divide, from 2 to 4, to 8, 16, 32, Finally, she had created a living, breathing organism. The first fully viable dinosaur embryo. The embryo was placed into an artificial ovum, similar to what was used in the creation of the dwarf elephant a year earlier. To simulate a natural environment, the slowly developing specimen was placed into an unfertilized emu egg, where it could continue to develop within the safety of that secluded space. Sorkin continued to monitor its development on an ultrasound monitor, hoping to make out what species she created from the obscured image displayed. The basic silhouette was much too vague to pinpoint an exact species. The only thing that was certain was that it was some sort of theropod. It wasn't until months of incubation that she was able to determine exactly what it was. Its head was much too large for an ornithopod, but its arms were far too long to be a tyrannosaur, much to Hammond's dismay. Finally, she found a more defining feature on the ultrasound, an unusual anomaly on the specimen's foot, a toe claw. It could have been a dromaeosaur, but there's no record of any sort of raptor in the Hell Creek Formation, not during 1985 at least, which leaves only the troodontids as a possible culprit. Unfortunately, due to the extreme lack of fossil evidence surrounding the Troodon, it was impossible to determine which exact species it was between Troodon formosus and Pectinodon baccari, and in the end, she decided to merge the two genus names for each species, describing the newly hatched prehistoric species as Troodon Pectinodon. Soon after they hatched, it was time to show them off to the investors, and they met together on Isla Sorna. During the presentation, Hammond and Lockwood allowed the investors to interact with the infant Troodon on display. Ignorant of its venomous saliva, unfortunately, one of the investors got too close and spooked the Troodon, causing it to lash out and bite at one of the representatives, who succumbed to the bite and died in the helicopter while being transferred to a hospital in Costa Rica. Many of InGen's investors pulled out after the incident, and the construction of Jurassic Park San Diego was halted. Sorkin was removed from her post as chief geneticist, and nearly lost her job. But Lockwood insisted on keeping her, warning that she may run to a rival genetics company, Biosyn. Sorkin was removed from the genetics team and demoted to field research, where she would monitor the behaviors of the dinosaurs InGen had cloned. After the Troodon incident, Hammond labeled it as a threat to his vision for Jurassic Park, and it was placed under evaluation to determine its future. After witnessing the potential danger of the Troodon, and worried about the possibility of it, or worse, an all-out dinosaur breakout, Hammond decommissioned Jurassic Park San Diego, and set his sights on an island closer to Isla Sorna, but separate from Los Cinco Muertes, a remote, mostly tropical island 87 miles from Isla Sorna, called Isla Nublar. Sorkin was temporarily replaced by Harvard graduate Dr. Stephen P. Jackson until a more permanent replacement could be found. Henry Wu was brought in during the summer as an intern to assist in the development of future species, and was personally assigned with discovering a new method of engineering dinosaurs much more quickly. During the construction of Jurassic Park on Isla Nublar, the Troodon was officially removed from the InGen list, and Hammond ordered that all specimens be euthanized. Sorkin was outraged at the prospect of bringing an entire species back to extinction, saved a small group and placed them in a quarantine pen in the northern part of Isla Nublar. Hammond granted Sorkin her own lab in the same region to keep it quiet. Sorkin continued to monitor the Troodons in secret, even testing the unusual toxin in its saliva in the hopes of discovering an antidote. For years afterwards, the Troodons continued to be monitored in secret. Multiple tests were conducted in relation to the Troodon's venom and its unusual behavior, but due to the nature of the current situation, no real progress could be made. Sorkin continued monitoring the other species on Nublar, and began requesting bringing in species exclusively living on Isla Sorna, such as the Parasaurolophus walkeri. In response, InGen considered relocating Sorkin to Sorna to continue her research there, but she insisted on staying on Nublar in order to keep the Troodon protected. In regards to the research conducted on the Troodon, Sorkin did discover a treatment to save those who had been infected. A 1/4 milligram of carfentanil, an opioid commonly used by veterinarians as tranquilizers, could be used to treat the effects of the venom and save the victim. Although the events leading to how Dr. Sorkin found this out are currently unknown. As for those who aren't treated, however, the effects of the venom start to take effect instantly in the form of paranoia, as the Troodons begin stalking their prey. The victim becomes disoriented further and suffers double vision and eventually hallucinations, at which point the Troodon waits for them to become incapacitated and stops moving. The victims would suffer seizures before succumbing to paralysis. After stopping, the Troodons begin to form a nest around the body, building mounds of dirt similar to that of large modern-day birds such as emus and cassowaries. Eventually, the victim suffers the venom's final stage, where the brain activity halts and your body continues functioning, yet completely devoid of thought. Your motor functions, such as blood flow and breathing, are the only thing keeping your body alive, if you can call that alive anyway. At this stage, the Troodon begin to lay their eggs in your abdomen, using your body as a blanket to help keep them warm, and giving their spawn plenty of food once they hatch. It is assumed that once the eggs start to hatch, similar to that of the tarantula hawk wasp, who shares a similar roosting behavior, the newborns would begin to consume the lifeless, empty husk that once was, leaving only the brain and central nervous system behind. If you were unfortunate enough to not go brain dead or pass out from shock, you would feel every waking moment. During the 1993 Isla Nublar incident, the Troodons escaped during Nedry's sabotage of the park's security system and were released into the wild. Within the first 12 hours, no known casualties occurred, although it is theorized that Sorkin's assistant, David, was killed by a Troodon shortly after the park's fall. The next day, InGen sent mercenaries back to the island to recover any survivors. 2 teams were confirmed to have been sent, with the major team being completely wiped out from a mass Troodon attack in the park's visitor center. Of the second team, their leader, Daniel Decaf Cafaro, was attacked by a pack of Troodon and suffered a similar fate. His body was later discovered by the mercenary companion Billy Yoder, among other survivors, including Dr. Laura Sorkin herself. This attack was the last known sighting of the Troodon. It is assumed that in the following year, during the 1994 cleanup, Troodons were sighted, and many theorized that they were wiped out. But due to the sheer population size, their nocturnal behavior, and incredibly dangerous toxin, this theory is considered unlikely. They most prominently nest around the northern border of Isla Nublar, where the maintenance tunnels most frequent the island, as well as in the East Dock region of the park. This same place would be classified as a restricted area during the construction of Jurassic World, not 10 years later, and we are led to believe that this restriction was placed due to the wild Troodon populations before being rounded up by InGen mercenaries before the opening of Jurassic World in 2005. It's unknown what exactly happened to the Troodons by this point. It's possible that Masrani had them euthanized, as it would be seen as a threat to public safety, or they were placed in quarantine pens and other holding areas until a permanent home was found. Years later, moments before the Cybo eruption in 2018, InGen funded by the Lockwood estate were sent back to Isla Nublar to rescue as many species as possible from the approaching extinction event. There is no mention of Troodon being involved in this project in any way, but since there was never a full comprehensive list given of the Arcadia Manifest, and since InGen kept genetic records of every species they were involved in cloning, both Sorkin's Troodon Ecdinodon and the Jurassic World's Stedonicus inequalis have potential to return. However, it is also possible that they have already appeared, or at very least, given the potential potential to appear sometime in the near future. Shortly after the dinosaur breakout in 2018, an incident occurred somewhere in the northern USA involving a group of unidentified carnivorous dinosaurs, specifically mentioned to have been labeled as extinct on both Isla Nublar and Isla Sorna prior to this event. It's unknown as to what species it could have been, but only a small handful of species that had been cloned for both Jurassic Park and Jurassic World have been classified as extinct. Proceratosaurus, Metriacanthosaurus, Herrerasaurus, and the mythical Troodon. Proceratosaurus is a species specifically cloned by InGen before Hurricane Clarissa, but all known specimens had gone extinct and all traces of its DNA were unfortunately lost, and no known Mazarani attempt to reclone it has been documented. Metriacanthosaurus was cloned for both Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, first going extinct on Isla Sorna after Hurricane Clarissa, but being revived and recloned for Jurassic World before falling back into extinction between 2015 and 2018, more than likely by the Scorpius rex. Herrerasaurus, however, was cloned for Jurassic Park, but fell back into extinction as the only 4 confirmed specimens were killed before the 1994 cleanup on Isla Nublar. They were labeled on the DPG's Save the Dinosaur poster, but it is unconfirmed as to whether or not they were revived for Jurassic World, and if it had made it onto the Arcadia to be sent to the mainland. Troodon was intended to be euthanized, yet kept alive by Dr. Laura Sorkin, and their number continued to grow well after the original park fell, with their last confirmed sighting being just after the 1993 Isla Nublar incident, with no confirmed report of any surviving specimens since that point. It is unlikely that they would have gone unnoticed for that long, but it is also likely that any potential sighting was covered up by third parties who didn't want people to know of the Troodon's existence. Even Biosyn claimed that the existence of the species involved with the incident up north were covered by layers of red tape. Unfortunately, there is no way to determine that what exactly is behind the incident up north, and we likely won't know until Universal or Chaos Theorem finally confirms something, but we're here to speculate until that day comes. The history of the Troodon spans across the entire Jurassic franchise, from 1985 during the construction of Jurassic Park San Diego, to unconfirmed sightings in Iran and North America. Even if our claims and theories are pure speculation, we like to believe that the Troodon is still out there. Somewhere, lurking in the darkness of night, stalking any potential victim to hunt or roost, with only its peering, white, unblinking eyes and haunting calls to confirm their presence in any way. Perhaps if you go out looking, you'll find it, but the chances are it will have already found you. A creature of darkness, the Troodon of Jurassic Park is truly deserving of the final spot on our list. Wrapping up this series, we hope that you enjoyed our first holiday special. Please let us know what you think in the comments below, if you agree or disagree with our list. The tiny terror known as Compsognathus, the killer of villains, the Dilophosaurus, the wickedly intelligent Velociraptor, Camp Cretaceous' demon, the Scorpius rex, and lastly, the one directly from the dark recesses of your nightmares, the Troodon. From me and everybody else here at the Amber Mine, we hope that you have a safe and a happy Halloween. Hey Amber Miners, thanks for watching today's video. Be sure to click the subscribe button on your way out and click the bell icon to be notified of our videos when we upload them. Consider leaving a like on this video so we know that you enjoyed it. Leave a comment about content that you would like to see come to this channel, and be sure to check the description for links to our Discord if you would like to talk to the team more directly. Check out our Patreon if you would like to help fund the team and its upcoming projects. Remember, this is a fan group reviewing the depths of our favorite franchise, and that we are in no way affiliated with the groups and companies that own them. Be sure to support Universal Studios and Amblin Entertainment. This has been an Amber Mind production. Thank you for mining with us.